Hey, good afternoon and good morning. Welcome to the MIKE'22 webinar series hosted by the National Veteran Small Business Coalition. Thank you for joining us today. We'd like to thank our sponsors, BAE Systems and Philips North America, for making this webinar series possible. I do have one announcement this week. We are a month away from the golf tournament, so please come out and meet your fellow business owners and join around the golf. And after the golf, we'll be having a networking session. So if you want to sign up, please go to our website, and we're looking forward to seeing you there. This webinar is an hour and 15 minutes and is being recorded. All slides and recordings will be sent to attendees by this Friday. If you have any questions during this webinar, please type it on the right hand of your screen on the control panel. And most of you know who I am. I'm Earl Morgan. I am the program director for the National Veteran Small Business Coalition. And this is a really great topic because I get questions all the time about how do I find talent for my small business. So we have this today, Corey New. He is the Chief Operating Officer for ISI Professional Services. He will talk about winning the talent war for small business. Corey, welcome to Charlie Mike, and I will pass the mic to you.
All right, Earl, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, it's great to meet with all of you. And I will bring up the slides here momentarily. All right. All right, Earl, can you just confirm, can you see the slides? All
yes,
right.
I can see. Yep.
Okay, great. Well, great. Well, thanks again, Earl. And I just want to welcome everybody to today's webinar. On behalf of Chris Lefevre, my boss, the CEO for ISI Professional Services, I want to thank Earl and the National Veteran Small Business Coalition for the opportunity to discuss a topic that many senior executives and leaders are struggling with today. And finding, hiring, and retaining talent is becoming and has become one of the biggest challenges for today's small business CEOs and senior leaders. Talking with Chris the other day as I was preparing for this, he mentioned that we've been with NVSBC for 10 years, and I know it's an important network and value the relationships that Chris has fostered through that in the past, and I know we look forward to what it holds in the future. At ISI, we believe that people are an important piece of a larger puzzle. The financial sustainability and success of our company are directly correlated with the team that we surround ourselves with. For those of you who served in the military, you know that one of the most impactful responsibilities as a leader is to identify, groom, and mentor the officers and non-commissioned officers who will eventually replace you as a senior leader within an organization. It's paramount to the success, and it's sort of a different philosophy that I think in the private sector some senior leaders struggle with, which is grooming your replacement. But I really think that's the culture and mindset in today's talent management that businesses need to take a different look at as they prepare for growing internally and grooming their own talent as they look outside the company and explore their talent. So today, the focus I'm going to discuss and focus on is the candidate, the job, and the fit. What we want to focus on is how to align and take those three things and find the talent that you're looking for in the job. And we've got a tool that we're going to share with you that we use in the company and that we use with clients, and it's helped us find the right talent and retain them. So it's a great tool, and we'll get into a little bit. But the concept of the candidate, the job, and the fit, that model exists whether you're using this tool or not. The last thing we're going to talk about is the interview process. I know a lot of companies have challenges when it comes to interviewing, whether it's training, preparing, or executing the interviews. And so we're going to provide some thoughts and some recommendations around that process. So at ISI, as you see on the slide, we talk about shaping tomorrow's leaders today, and talent management is one of those critical pieces to accomplishing what we believe is such an important thing. So something that I don't like to talk about, which is myself, I will share a few things. The lobsters on the slide is representative of kind of where I grew up and have come full circle as far as the state of Maine. If you've never been here before, it's called Vacation Land, and it's a beautiful place to be. And my wife and I are, after many, many years, have come back home, if you will, and we're excited about that. I think what I wanted to share, just a quick story about myself, or how I would want to describe myself. I'll share a story about somebody that I have been working with as an executive coach, and it really just sort of describes for me what I get up every morning and get excited about doing. So I have a young lady that's she's a coordinator for a nonprofit that supports youth programs. She works in Massachusetts. She's in her mid to late 20s. She grew up in Puerto Rico, and she had some great opportunities coming out of school. She attended Bucknell University, and she's come back and is trying to give back to the community through the nonprofit program that provided her so many opportunities. We connected or through the executive coaching program that I participated in, and she was part of this nonprofit business or organization that we were partnering with to work on our executive coaching. When I met her, she was very frustrated, lacked confidence, was in a position of leadership, but nobody had really spent any time mentoring her or helping her work through some of the issues that she was having. She didn't respond to emails. She would show up late for the coaching sessions, and there came a point where I had kind of given her the ultimatum or the decision to can discontinue the coaching relationship, or that she was going to have to sort of make some changes, and she did. And we have spent time together, and I do it, I don't charge her anything. It's not about the money. For me, it's about investing in somebody that believes in improving herself and wants to be a better leader. And today she's got the confidence, she smiles, she gets excited about going to work. And for me, that's what it's all about. And that's what I think I'm about when it comes to helping people who are in leadership positions be successful. So let's get a little bit into winning the war on talent. So CEO's biggest challenges, if you look at some of the word clouds around, there's no doubt that the pandemic has changed the work environment in many ways, I would argue permanently. Working from home requires a different type of management. It requires a different way of communicating. It requires a different way of managing the organization in a virtual environment, and that has posed new challenges that a lot of companies weren't prepared for. There's the physical and mental health of your employees. In the military, that was a requirement. As a leader, you had to know what was going on with the people that you led, their families, their children, because it had an impact. It had an impact on their job. Today, I think that same mindset has carried over into the private sector, and it's not something that people usually think of when they think about organizations and leaders, but it's an important part of what's going on within the organizations because of the challenges of the pandemic. I'm not sure, a lot of people talk about the new normal. I'm not sure that there is a new normal. I think the new normal is being able to adapt to change and preparing for what you don't know of what's going to happen in the future. And that's a tough thing to do, but I think that's what I would say is a big challenge for CEOs, is to step back and visualize how they can be more flexible and adapt to the environment. And one of the ways to do that is your people. So the current business environment, in the early 90s, the Army War College coined a term, VUCA, and it stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And so I think when you look across the different challenges that are going on in the world of business right now, with inflation, the labor mismatch, supply chain, we got the war going on in Ukraine that's having an impact across the globe when it comes to food resources, and then the volatility, obviously, of what we're dealing with, the price of gas. These all present challenges, and what happens with leaders is they have a choice. Are they going to get mired in sort of the day-to-day activities, or are they going to rise above and stay focused, sort of focusing strategically and understanding, how to balance their priorities, their resources, and their risk? I would argue that successful companies in this environment have strong leadership. They have decentralized decision making within their organization, and they have sustainable improvement processes. And talent has a significant impact on the ability to do those things. So when we look at talent and some of the trends that we're seeing, the pandemic has in many ways brought out the best and the worst of their organizations. The newer generations that are looking for jobs, I think that they're demanding truth, and they want authenticity with their leadership. They want to feel respected, and it's about social change. More and more when we're doing interviews for candidates, they're asking questions about what is your culture, what's your leadership climate, what's your leadership style, do you invest in your employees for their professional development? It seems to be less about the money. It seems to be, less about the title. These are the things that are important to people as they're looking to find their forever home, if you will, when it comes to jobs. Everywhere you look today, we're seeing signs for we are hiring, and so you can tell that it's hard finding talent, and it's hard finding people who are committed to something that you believe in as an organization. One statistic is that you see under the attracting and retaining talent is 71% of professionals say they would consider a pay cut to work with a company that aligns more with their values. Well, I think that that's a very telling statistic that gives you an idea of what people are willing to do to find that forever home, and what is important to them in that process. So when we look at retention, there's 5 things that we're showing here. There's more, but when it comes to the predictors of retention, I think these are 5 critical statistics that give us a feel for what's going on in the world of retaining your talent. 76% of companies, or the 76% of the companies that were interviewed, the people that were interviewed said that that's what's important to them is that they show concern and care for their employees, that they have trust and confidence in their senior leadership team, one thing that we talk about with leaders is when it comes to trust and credibility, that what you build and earn over the previous day is what you show up the next day when you go to work. That's where you start off your day, with trust and credibility, and that trust and credibility will build. It'll increase, it'll decrease, or it'll stay the same over the course of the day, and then you leave the day with hopefully an increased level of trust and credibility. And that's a huge burden on leaders. And today, with social media and everything that goes on, as a leader, you're being watched in many different ways, and that's a huge burden to bear. Talked a little bit about the opportunity to learn and develop at a company. How are we going to invest in the people that we bring onto the team? And I think it's an important aspect. You always have to be investing. Part of it is your own personal development, but what are you going to do as an organization to provide opportunities and incentivize the growth for the individual that will be for the betterment of the company? 70% are looking for companies that are effectively managed and well run. That goes directly towards the leadership aspect of what organizations must have. And I think the word I used earlier was everyone's looking for that forever home. They want to stay with a company. A lot of people think that the younger generations want to just job hop, and I don't think that that's what's happening. I think the job hopping is a result of not finding that forever home, but that's what companies or what candidates or people who are looking to move around. They're looking to have that long-term stability. So what are the results of poor hiring consequences? Just to provide some more statistics, when you look at hiring and the interview process, the average number of interviews for companies hiring a candidate is anywhere between 2 and 3. The actual face time that happens during the interview process is 45 to 90 minutes. And so when you think about how much time is spent in that face-to-face interview, whether it's done, in person or virtually, that's not a lot of time to really determine if the person that you're looking to hire is the right person. And statistically, it's a coin flip. For every 2 people you hire, statistically, one of them is not going to work out for many different reasons. And the one that doesn't work out is going to have a direct impact on the job. It's going to have an impact on your team, and it's going to have an overall impact on your culture. And so, those are some of the ramifications, from a organizational perspective when it comes to poor hiring. The $11,000 is the average cost per employee for what is the labor costs associated with hiring somebody. So that's your recruiters, that is your technology, that's your marketing, your HCM that you're using to find good candidates. $11,000 for every time that you lose somebody and you have to backfill that person. And when you start to think of that from a profitability perspective, not only is it a flip of a coin and has an impact on the organization, it will start to have an impact on your bottom line. And those are unavoidable costs that have to be spent. And if you see it from that perspective and you're concerned about the financial success of your company, it's going to cause you to sort of step back and rethink how you're doing the process of finding talented people. So when it comes to sort of the talent optimization, one of the models that we use, and this is part of what I'm going to talk about with the predictive index, is aligning your people strategy with your business strategy. Many companies spend days and weeks every year focusing on their business strategy, their organizational strategy? How much time do you spend when it comes to your talent management strategy? Finding the right people, growing the people that you already have, identifying high potential performers that you think have the skill sets to grow within the organization. It's something that in some ways I would say it's sort of backwards in the sense that the business strategy isn't necessarily going to conform with the people that you've hired. You've got to find the right people for the right positions in order for you to accomplish the business strategy that you've set forth for the organization. The most important word that I would ask you to focus on is the aligning. And we're going to get into more about the alignment when it comes to the job, the candidate, and the fit. So let's start off talking a little bit about the hiring process. So when we think of the hiring process, we think of it from the perspective of the whole person. So there's the head part for the candidate. What are the needs? What drives? What behaviors? What motivates somebody to do what they enjoy doing? It's the head has to do a little bit more around sort of the personality and the cognitive behaviors. And so this is the key part of what we're going to talk about is how do we identify and align the head, with what the needs of the organization are. The other aspect of the whole person is the heart. So we're looking here at the values, the interests, and the passions that person brings to the organization and to the discussion. And then we'll use the word bag, or we can use the word rucksack for those of you who are in the military. But this is the resume. This is the where they had focused academically. It's the stuff that's on the resume. It's the experience they bring, and that's obviously an important part. But as you can see in the bottom blue box, typically the reason why people are being fired isn't because of their heart or what they're bringing to the table in their bag. It's really about their head. It's about the misalignment of the organizational needs and what drives employees in the alignment of that. So the hiring formula is really a mathematical equation. It's the summarization of the job, the candidate, and the fit of both of those. And when you add that together, that's where you're going to start to see the alignment when it comes to finding the right talent and retaining them. They're not mutually exclusive. They do have some level of dependency between all three. There are other factors when you look at somebody, their desired salary, what they want in health benefits, what they think their title should be. But those are not initially what I would argue are factors within the hiring process. Those are things that are important, but they take a back seat initially to make sure that you're aligning and you're finding and following this formula. I like this picture because it shows sort of everybody waiting for that job interviewing, and they're staring at their resumes. Some things that I think would be interesting to share around resumes. One article that I recently read said that some statistics show that 93% of people who know somebody who has lied or provided false information on a resume. 78% embellish or tell, we'll call them fibs, regarding job titles, degrees, revenue numbers. And yet at the end of the day, that's where we focus our time. We focus our time on what's the resume say, and when we get into the interview process, there's conversations around the resume. So it's something that's important, but is that helping us to understand the alignment between the job, the candidate, and the fit? So let's first talk about the job. What are you asking somebody to do, and how do you know what that is? What are the requirements of the role? How do we best determine, the demands of the work? Can they operate and function in an independent and a less collaborative work environment, which is what we're seeing because of the pandemic? It's not necessarily about the technical or the functional requirements of the job. It's more about the behaviors and what you're asking someone to do. I want to know, can they solve problems, not necessarily create problems? Can they identify root cause analysis and step back and come up with a way of resolving the problem before launching into solutions that most likely won't work? Do they have the leadership skills required for the position, or do they just need to be a good follower? So when you start to step back and you ask these questions, the question now is, how do you define what that person brings to the conversation? So there are many assessment tools in the market. Some of you may be familiar with some more traditional ones like the Myers-Briggs, but there are a lot of them in the job market. And the one thing that we like as we talk about sharing a little bit about the predictive index is it's not just a personality, behavior, cognitive assessment. It takes this information about the person and it's actionable data, it's actionable information. We use it as a way to determine the best fit and alignment. So a little bit about the predictive index based on the audience being in sort of the veteran community. It actually started during World War II. 1942, a gentleman by the name of Arnold Daniels, he volunteered for at the time, the U.S. Army Air Corps. He was shipped off to England, and he was a flight navigator, and his team quickly got into combat, and they logged over 30 missions. And after those 30 missions, what was amazing was there was not one single combat casualty. So the leadership found that was interesting and noted the team's stellar performance. So they sent a psychologist to sort of better understand what was different about these navigators that separated them from others. What ended up happening was sort of the initial start of what's called a psychometric process. But the intent of the psychologist was to define and identify what was common in the behaviors for these navigators. And they were having a hard time finding the right candidates. So the psychologist ended up developing a model in an assessment that would help determine the navigators that, based on their filling out the assessment, would align with the needs of what the navigators were looking for. So this was where it really started. Daniels, he ended up, after the war, coming back home, and he took this and he became very interested in this sort of psychometric testing, and it became a lifelong passion. So, 75, 80 years later, this assessment process is still going strong. It's had many different evolutions, but that's the genesis of where this came from. So from a process perspective, the first thing that we want to do in understanding how to find the right talent is, what does the job require? And there's two aspects of that. There's the behavior assessment, and there is a cognitive assessment. And when you look over to the left and you look at the behavioral instructions and the cognitive instructions, this is just a screenshot into some of the questions that somebody or the organization would use to determine the needs of the position. So what ends up happening is, typically around 3 to 5 people that are familiar with the process and with the job will actually take this assessment. And based on how they answer it, what you will get as a result is on the right, which is a job target profile. So it takes the answers to the questions, and there's a lot of adjectives that are in, I think it's 46 adjectives that are within the instructions or the questions. It takes the results from those 3 to 5 people and it comes up with a job profile for the position. And when you look at this one specifically, it's a specialist, a scholar, and a craftsman. So Predictive Index has 17 different talent profiles, and what they take this information and they put it into a terminology that helps to explain what drives or what the position is going to require and what the behaviors are that they're looking for. So next we're going to focus on the candidate. So when it comes to the candidate and some of the questions that you would ask you to think about, it's more about how does this person think and work? What are their natural gifts? What are their superpowers? What are areas that there may be misalignment and where there may be an opportunity to explore where there may be a misalignment between the needs of the position and the behaviors of the candidate. The cognitive skills are more around the sort of the technical aspect of the job. You don't have to use the cognitive skills assessment. It's something that you can use, but it helps to identify if you're looking for an employee that's going to be doing more of a repetitive process and their ability to deal with attention to detail versus something that requires more of a numbers type of job. So when we look at the focus, what you don't notice on here when you talk about the person is what I talked about earlier, which is a lot of the things that you'll see on resumes. How much money did they manage in revenue? What was their year-over-year sales growth? Those are important things, but that's not what we really want to know about this person. We want to understand, again, going back to what I said earlier, we want to understand the head. We want to know what drives this person, what behaviors that they have, and how that aligns best with the job that you're trying to hire for. So going a little bit deeper into the candidate and getting into who this person is. So we got Mike Gart here, and what we've understood is when it comes to him applying for the job, and if we understand what the job requires, it's going to show us whether there's a good alignment around fit. And so Mike is a captain. He has a desire to be a problem solver. He's very comfortable with change and innovations, and he likes to have his hands on the steering wheel. So this is just a small window into Mike from a behavior assessment perspective, but it helps us to understand what is his behavior, what drives him. And when you look at his strengths, this helps us to understand where he has strengths, but then also, more importantly, in some aspects, what are his caution areas. Once you've screened and interviewed job candidates and you put them through the process of sort of taking a large group of candidates and narrowing it down to a smaller group, that's when you would want to send them the assessment prior to, say, if you're going to do the second interview. Because now what you're trying to do is you're trying to understand, you know, what the position requires based off of the job assessment. Now you're trying to focus on what is the alignment and the fit of that person based off of what drives them. So when you look at the fit rating, that fit rating is a result of the alignment of the job and the person. And in the subsequent slides, I will show you a little bit more about how that works, but that's where the fit rating comes in. Now, there's more detailed reports around this, but and just to make sure that it's clear that this isn't a panacea, right? This isn't the, you know, if there's 5 stars, that means that Mike is a perfect fit. There are other things that you have to bring into the conversation when you're looking to hire somebody. It's not all encompassing. And there's been times where, you know, maybe somebody wasn't a 5-star, maybe they were 4.5 stars, but because they had other intangibles, they were a better option to hire. So it's something that you can bring into your decision-making process to increase the probability that it's going to be better than a coin flip for finding that right candidate. So now we're going to talk a little bit more about the fit, right? So how well does the candidate fit with the job? You know, does the work resonate with them? You know, are they going to be able to sustain the demands of the position? What are the demands of the position? You know, there's a team alignment concern, right? So if you've got somebody that's working with a team, one of the nice things about the predictive index is it gives you sort of a perspective into the view of the other people and what drives them. And so how do you align yourself within that larger team? So let me get my notes. So as a small business, time and resources are one of the most significant challenges when it comes to, you know, finding the right fit. And so, you know, what you're looking for is, and one of the terms that we use using a sports analogy is sometimes you're looking for that utility player, right? Somebody that can play infield, outfield, and can be a DH. Sometimes the left-handed pitchers, which are a very important position to fill, they're good, but again, having too many left-handed pitchers isn't going to be a good fit for the organization. All right, so continuing on the sort of the fit conversation, when we look at the left and you look at the screenshot, this gives you a little bit better understanding of what is this behavioral target fit. And so when you look at the 4 gray lines and you look at the orange sections on the line with the blue dots, what this is just a graphical representation of 4 factors that the predictive index looks at. So the first line is about dominance. It's the degree to which an individual seeks to control their environment. On one extreme, you have being collaborative, and then on the other side, you have somebody that's looking to be very independent. The second gray line is about extroversion. It's the degree to which individuals seek social interaction with other people. The third gray line is about patience. It's the third factor, and it's the degree to which individuals seek consistency and stability in their environment. And then the last and the fourth line is around formality, the degree to which individuals seek to conform to formal rules and structure. And so as you look at the right side of the slide and you look at Mike Gardigan and you look at the alignment of him to the needs of the position, the orange bars are sort of well, they're this, where based on that 3 to 5 assessment, where does the job land when it comes to the needs of the position? And the blue dots represent Mike in his profile and where they fit. And so if you, as you see here, there's strong alignment for Mike when it comes to what drives him and what his behaviors are with the needs of the position. And this is how we do an assessment of making sure that we're finding the right talent from a behavioral and cognitive perspective. And this goes into the fit rating and there's other things. Now, just because in theory, if Mike doesn't fit inside that orange section, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's not a good fit, right? So there's alignment within the target and there's alignment outside of it. Just because they're not part of that, the sections that were identified in the behavioral target for this job doesn't necessarily mean that they're not a good fit. So to summarize, going back to the mathematical formula, if you will, the candidate, the job, the candidate, the fit, if that all happens, then from a talent perspective, what you're looking at is increased retention, increased engagement, looking at the culture of your company. You're starting to fit and align the most important part of the organization with its people, which is its people, with what the needs of the position and what the needs of the organization are. And this is where it really has a powerful impact on the company. You may see it in lower turnover rates. You may see it in increases on something like a culture assessment. And most importantly, you're probably going to see it in the increased productivity and profitability when it comes to the financial aspects. The people who are aligned and who are happy and believe in what they're doing as part of the organization, the intangible successes from that are what organizations should see as a result of the alignment of the job, the candidate, and the fit. So now I'm going to transition a little bit into the role of the interview. The interview process is something that I think, in my experience as a hiring manager and being responsible for leaders, there's not a lot of training and preparation out there when it comes to setting up people for success in this important part of the process. So, you're looking for the job, you're looking for the candidate, and you're looking to fit. The interview process is a way to sort of bring those all together and to confirm or unconfirm what may or may not be a good fit. So when it comes to the interview process, training is something that I think there's a planning, preparing, and executing part of that when it comes to a hiring manager being able to conduct an interview and doing it professionally and accomplishing what the true goals are of that interview. What's the end state? What are we trying to accomplish in that interview, and understanding what the goals are? What questions are you going to ask? Who's going to ask those questions? That's an important part. I mean, it's one thing to ask questions, but if the questions aren't focused on determining whether there's alignment or not, you're not getting to the level of information that you need in order for you to make a good decision. And then as it comes to sort of the decision-making process, do you have a formalized process to compare candidates, to take a look at interview questions, look at their assessments, or is it one of those situations where you just kind of follow your gut? I would argue that you want to try to have more of a formalized process, taking as much information as you can into that decision-making process so that you make the best decision. So coming back to the predictive index, one of the nice things about the predictive index is it helps simplify for those who are going to be conducting the interview. It helps provide them with a questionnaire or an interview guide to help identify what questions you need to ask the candidate to confirm that the behaviors of the job align with the behaviors and what drives that candidate. And then also where there may be misalignment, it's going to ask you to ask questions of the candidate that will help to understand where there may be mitigation. For example, as an introvert, I think we can, for those of you who are introverts and you've been in positions of leadership, there are times where you are required to sort of what I like to call is to be a job situational extrovert. So the job requires you to have more of the extroverted behaviors, but that's going to be a challenge for you. So in the interview process, if I'm looking for a position and I need somebody that's, that requires more of the engagement with people, and they have a little bit more of the introversion as part of their assessment, the interview guide is going to ask questions in a way that's going to have a conversation around how to mitigate that, what does that look like, and what are ways that the candidate may overcome some of those gaps in misalignment when it comes to the needs of the position versus what drives them as an individual. So we've talked about talent from the perspective of, what are we looking for in the position? So, that's done through an assessment process. It can be done, outside of the predictive index. It could be just writing down, this is what we think the skills and behaviors of the position require. Then we look at the candidate. We look at their behavior through them taking the assessment themselves, and you can do it both from a behavior perspective and from a cognitive perspective. So people are the most important part of any organization, and the perks are important, but understanding the people and helping them to grow will, as it says, the garner loyalty. It'll build that trust and credibility that needs to exist, and that's what people are looking for as they're looking for their forever home. When you find the right talent, there's exponential increases in the productivity, the efficiencies, and the communication and collaboration when there is alignment between the job and the candidate. There's also alignment when it comes to the candidate and the company culture. So a culture or a company culture is really about accountability within the organization, which is executed by the people who are there. It's about policies, it's about rules, it's about everybody holding each other accountable to the process, and that's the alignment of the job and the candidate will help build that culture where there is the accountability to the company vision, mission, and values. When I ask candidates in the hiring and interview process what they're looking for in a company in today's job market, there's three things that typically have stood out to me over the last couple of years. One is they want to make a difference. They want to come into an organization and they want to feel valued, but they want to make a difference in a different capacity, and feel like that what they're doing over the course of the day or the week is going to have a bigger impact and difference with the company. They want leadership that cares. They want leadership that's going to invest in them. And then lastly, they want an opportunity to be mentored. They want an opportunity to grow within the company. So that's where people are looking, and as far as the company and what's important to them. But this is it's a difficult job to find the right talent, and I would argue it's even more difficult once you bring them into your organization about retaining them. Oftentimes we talk about, when somebody decides to leave or you've decided to terminate somebody, that you do the exit interview. One of the things that we talk about is doing a stay interview, which is, it's sort of the performance management conversation. It's understanding what's important to somebody, where do they want to go, who do they want to be, and as a leader, helping them to get there. So the predictive index, we think it's a great tool to help formalize some of this talent, winning the war on talent and the talent management process. And I think it's a great way to take, your people strategy, the hiring, the retaining, and the investing in their future, and build that into your business strategy. And so we can talk a little bit more about that if that's something that you're interested in. But when it comes to retaining top talent, it's probably one of the most important things that, as a leader of an organization, that you can inculcate with your leadership, and ensure that you're bringing in the right people into your organization. So I think this slide, we throw it into the presentation because the lighthouse for us represents, kind of that leader. It's somebody that's in the chaos that you see here. They're standing strong, and they're providing a light for others to follow. And so for us, when you're finding and you're looking for talent from a leadership perspective, we think that the lighthouse is a great representation of what you're looking for in a leader. And so it's something that our leadership and coaching center really focuses on, and it's a great analogy for what today's leadership requires in the organizations. And as we talked about, sort of the business landscape and the trends and the talent trends, great leaders have a huge difference in the culture of the organization and taking it to wherever the senior leadership wants to take it. All right, Earl, I think that does it. This is a little bit more about our company, but hopefully that helps provide some different perspectives on winning the talent war, and some other ways that companies can look at to formalize the process and hopefully get a better than a 50-50 flip of a coin on success rate.
Okay, thank you so much. So just a reminder, everybody, that the recording and the slides will be sent to you on Friday. So look out for your email for the recording and the slides. So now we're at the Q&A section of this program. So the floor is open. Go ahead and type your questions on the right hand of the screen, the control panel, and we will answer those questions. So we'll give you time to formulate those questions and send them in. I get this every week. Got some really shy people out there. So Chris, you don't recommend that I go on America's Got Talent, look for some employees? I don't want a fry breather in my office. Wow, looks like we have a quiet audience today. So Corey, thank you so much for your insight on getting the talents to a small business. And I love working with your company. It's been great. I know Chris really well. So again, thank you guys so much. And we will see you guys next time on Charlie Mike. If you have any questions, you can email Corey or you can email me, and we will get those answers. And if you do miss this webinar or any other webinars in this series, you go to our YouTube channel and look up Charlie Mike on NVSBC channel and catch up on Charlie and Mike series.
Yeah, thanks,
Yeah.
Earl. And on the slide deck, we've got some links to our website and to reach out to us if you have any other questions. So feel free to do that. And thanks again for the opportunities. I really appreciate the opportunity to share some thoughts on winning the war on talent.
Okay. Thank you all so much. Look for my email on Friday and have a great day. Stay cool. It's been hot outside the last couple of days. I'm staying inside in this cold AC. So again, thank you so much, and I will see you next time. Take care, everybody.